Okay, so I had this whole video recorded on my predictions for The Last Airbender, and it got to the point where it was just so annoying to edit that I almost didn't release it. But I figure why not give something else a try? Something simpler, something straight to the camera, no editing. We'll see how it goes. Basically, 14 years ago, I went to watch The Last Airbender movie, and I cosplayed as Pian Dao, a high-ranking member of the Order of the White Lotus. And I was there with all of my friends, my brother, my wife, other friends. We brought not a marker, but a pen to give people airbender tattoos if they wanted them. We were all so excited, and then there was this massive disappointment as the movie just failed to live up to expectations or even to basic standards of good storytelling. So now when the new series is about to drop tomorrow, I am I'm a hopeful person in general, and so I'm hopeful that it's good, but at the same time, I'm also skeptical, and I have seen some things come out that make me wonder, is this actually going to be a good series or just an empty, oh, hey, that's nice version of Avatar that doesn't really stake out a reason for existing or being? So, here are my predictions for what's going to happen with the first season of Avatar: The Last Airbender. My first prediction is that probably the worst moments of the show, the things that just don't look quite right, are when they try to recreate specific action scenes from the original series. There are a couple of shots that I've seen so far that make me think this. The first is when Aang is riding his air scooter and he runs into a statue. The second is when they released a clip of him dodging a boulder in his fight with Boomy. In both cases, it left me thinking, yeah, that doesn't look quite right. And I think it's because, they're trying to be true to an animated action scene, which doesn't have to obey the laws of physics or gravity or, anything along those lines, but they're doing it with live action. And so it falls somewhere in the middle. It isn't true. It isn't perfectly true to the original. The speed is off, the physics are off, but it also isn't completely true to real life, and so it's just unsatisfying. So that's my prediction. When they try to really recreate fantastical action moments in the show, that instead of finding their own way to capture these things more realistically, that's where it will probably feel the weakest. Next prediction. I think Aang is probably going to be really good. I think the casting here seems good. The kid, portrays innocence and lightheartedness really well. We'll see how he does in the more dramatic moments, but if I had to make a bet, I bet that will be looked back on as a successful casting choice. I also have high hopes for Uncle Iroh and Zuko. I predict they will be standouts. A couple of reasons for that. One, it looks like they're going to be devoting more time to showing the Fire Nation in general and Zuko's journey more specifically, and that's some of the strongest stuff in Avatar to begin with. So if they seem to have gotten good actors, and so that's probably going to be a standout of the season. I do think that Sokka and Katara are probably going to end up being, fine, but just slightly less interesting than they were in the original series. And I say that because, when after the first trailer came out and we started getting interviews and talking to the cast and things like that, there were headlines about, oh, Sokka is no longer sexist, and there were some problematic gender role stuff that was taken away from Katara's character or journey. And that in and of itself isn't necessarily a bad thing. You can change how characters are portrayed. You can take, one aspect of their character and replace it with something else. You can change their personality. You can do something new and interesting with it. But everything I've heard around those two aspects isn't necessarily that they were having a different vision for what these characters should be like, but rather that they were just removing things because either they got a note from Netflix saying that Sokka was too unlikable, so take out this aspect of it, or hey, this kind of trope of not being able to do what you want to do because of gender roles in the world. Maybe that's played out, or maybe that's seen as problematic, so let's remove it. And it makes me wondering, well, you're probably going to, it makes me wonder that, or it makes me think that probably you're going to end up with characters that are pretty true to the original, but that are just slightly less interesting versions because you've taken out, some components of their character journeys. So I hope I'm wrong. We'll see. Maybe they do something new. That's always possible. In fact, I think that that's what you would want with this kind of remake, for there to be something new or interesting or different that kind of conveys the reason why this version of Avatar needs to exist. Because of course the main reason is money, but once you've decided to do something creative, well, what makes it your own? What's your own vision? And I think that brings me to my, I guess, second to last prediction, is that ultimately, at the end of the season, I think what we're going to look back on and say is that they were trying to serve too many masters. They were trying to stay true to some of the original action moments in the series while also having to be true to real life, and you end up in some sort of unsatisfying middle. You have to be true to the fact that the original series was a family-friendly series while somehow also appealing to Game of Thrones fans. And I'm not sure why that's a direction. I hope that's not just like studio guidance, but it feels like you're trying to serve two masters there. You're trying to stay true to the original characters while also having to take studio notes about not making characters too unlikable, so taking things out to accomplish that. And so I think when you're trying to serve multiple masters, when you're trying to meet the expectations, when sometimes they're going in conflicting directions, then it's really difficult to find your own voice and your own reason for being, your own creative stake in the ground for why your version of a thing should exist. And so I think in the end, it'll probably be, oh, well, of course, it's going to be better than the original movie. That's kind of like the lowest bar ever. But in the end, it'll be pretty good. I think that's where I think that's where we're going to end up landing here. And then my final prediction, which is a little bit out of order, is that I think that the least satisfying portrayal of bending is probably going to be earthbending. In the shots that I've seen, it looks like everything is moving just slightly too slowly. The rocks float in the air just a split second too long. And they're using lots of gravel effects along with, I don't know if that's actually a thing, but they're using lots of gravel in the special effects or the visual effects for it. And that just obscures the image. It makes it more difficult to see what's going on. And so that's been unsatisfying in every clip that I've seen so far. I think that'll be followed by airbending, just because it's really hard to portray wind and air in live action. So you have to rely on the effect of the wind and the air on things like dust and smoke. And the unintended consequence there, especially if you do a lot of that practically on set, is that it ends up obscuring what's actually happening in the image. I think firebending is probably going to be pretty good. I wish there were more concussive effects to the firebending that I've seen so far, but fire simulations are really pretty good now. And as long as they had good lighting on set to reflect the fact that fire was in the scene, then I think it'll look pretty realistic. And I think the most satisfying bending is probably going to be water bending. I think that was in the original live action movie. I think they got the closest with water bending, and water simulations have gotten way better since then, and you don't have to deal with the problem of lighting. So I think water bending is going to be the best portrayal of bending, followed by fire, followed by air, followed by earth. So the nice thing about predictions is that pretty soon I'm going to find out if I am right or wrong. And so maybe I'll do a review. This was a lot easier to record than the big complicated Tread Talks setup. So I'm just going to upload this straight. Let me know if you disagree, agree. We'll all find out together. Listen, I hope that it's good. I enjoy when things succeed, especially when people put a lot of time and effort into something. I want to be entertained by it. I don't like hating things. So I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that all of the negatives end up being positives, and that all the positives end up being correct. But we'll see. Either way, I'll be watching. I hope you enjoyed watching this, and have a great day.